In Matthew 25, we find ourselves in the middle of a massive wedding procession. In ancient Jewish times, weddings were often quite big deals, and they took place over a long period of time. There would be a period of betrothal where pledges would be made and sort of a contract was formed that was legally binding of how two people, a man and a woman, would come together as husband and wife. And they were, even from that point, considered married. But then the wedding actually took place along a long period of time, usually up to a year, where the bride and groom would sort of go their separate ways, and they would be apprenticed to older men and women. They would be prepared in the ways of what it means to be a good husband and a good wife, and they would be planning the actual wedding day itself. Usually this was quite a big deal. And how this would work is that when the groom would go away, and he'd usually be in another city or another town getting ready, and when news would arrive that he was about to come into town, the bridal party were supposed to prepare themselves. They were supposed to get everything ready, and then as soon as they heard the trumpet or the sound of the groom and the groomsmen and his family riding into town, that's when the wedding was going to take place, and everyone should have been prepared. And so, in Matthew chapter 25, we read a parable in verses 1 to 11 of what Matthew translates as the 10 virgins, or 10 young women. These would have been girls who are probably in their teens, who obviously are not married yet, who were invited to be part of this amazing wedding procession. They had an official job to be the escorts of the groom as he came in, that they were to go and light the way for him. And they were due to do this with oil in their lamps ready, so that whenever he would come, they would light up their lamps, and everybody in the town would know that the wedding is officially getting started. And so in our parable, we meet 10 of these women whose jobs are to sort of light the way, prepare the way for the entrance of the groom for the wedding to start. And it says that, this groomsman, he started his journey, but then he took a long time. It took him a while. And, these young women, they got tired and fell asleep. But 5 of them, it says, were wise, and they had oil already prepared in their lamps. They were ready to go. But the foolish ones, they weren't. They just came with lamps, no oil in their lamps, thinking that eventually I'll sort of be ready to go. The reason why they'd have lamps in the first place is that they wouldn't have known that the groom was on his way, which is why these young women are called foolish in the first place. They knew he was on his way. They brought a lamp, but they weren't prepared. Eventually, the bell rings, the cry comes out at midnight that he has arrived, he's come into town, and they were to do their job and light the way for him. And it says these women woke up, and the ones who had their lamps, the oil in their lamps ready, went out, and they lit their lamps and did their job as they were supposed to. But the foolish ones, they didn't know what to do. And so they went to the other ones and said, give us some of your oil. And they said, no, you should have already been prepared. And so then they went out to try to buy some oil, trying to just scatter it all around the city. But by the time they had actually found this oil that they were looking for, it was too late. The wedding party had started. And the groom had ridden in, he'd gotten off his donkey or whatever and gotten into the place that they were having the wedding, and the doors had closed. And these foolish young women were banging on the door, asking to be let in, but they said, too late, it's too late. And then Jesus adds one little line at the end in verse 13 where he says, therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour. That little line right there tells us all we need to know about this really strange, obscure parable. In fact, this parable is the third in a series of 5 parables that Jesus gives at the end of Matthew 24 to the end of Matthew chapter 25. And all of them are different ways of talking about the same thing. In Matthew chapter 24, Jesus is talking about when the Son of Man will return. The day of the Lord, when God will return to earth, when God finally shows up, he sends his Messiah to rid the world of evil and restore everything back to the way it should. And when sin and Satan get judged, and the righteous will be made part of God's family once and for all. And people are asking about Jesus, when this time is going to come. Jesus essentially tells them, nobody knows. Nobody at all knows. And that's not the point. The point is not for you to know. The point is simply for you to be ready, to be on your guard, to be living in such a way right now that when that event does happen, when the Son of Man, Jesus, returns and God is going to set everything right again, that people, his followers, are prepared and not caught off guard. This parable in particular highlights this really well, where all 10 of these people are invited to be part of what this wedding feast is. The wedding is essentially participation in what God is doing, God restoring the kingdom. And the groom coming is like Jesus' return. And we are all, everyone is invited and has a role in this amazing event. No one is left out. But the thing is that where are you in this amazing wedding procession? Are you ready? Are you like the 10 virgins who show up with their lamp, but they don't have their oil ready? They know he's already on the way, but they just don't care to act. Are you like that? That, yeah, you sort of believe in Jesus, he's coming, God's going to make all things new, but you just don't care to actually participate in that. You're not prepared at all. Or are you like the other women in the story, that that Jesus' return is imminent? And so, even though you can't see him, it seems like he's a long way off, you're not going to be caught unprepared. That you are living right now for that moment that is going to happen soon, that Jesus is going to return. That's ultimately the question that Jesus wants to ask. He says we don't know and we can't know when God is going to finally show up and make all things right again. But what you and I can do is that we can prepare ourselves by living right now a life of readiness and obedience to the King who is coming.